scream. Wake up, wake up, step into the dream. Infotainment brilliance gets you on your way. From House of Lakey Studios, it's your favorite part of day. Jimmy Lakey in the morning makes you feel alive. Unleash unfiltered, unashamed, unafraid we rise. God bless America, praise Jesus as we roll. Coast to coast, sure, Jimmy's waking up your soul. Start your day with Jimmy Lakey. The Lakey Entertainment Tower, shout it loud. Start your day with Jimmy Lakey. The show starts now.
All right, here we are. The show does start right now. Glad to have you. Thank you, Brother Leroy, the Jimmy Lakey Mass Choir, high atop the Lakey Entertainment Towers from the House of Lakey Studios. I am the aforementioned Jimmy Lakey, and pleasured, pleased, and thrilled to be here. It's Monday, the second day of February, year of our Lord 2026. Got it right. I want to make sure I get it. 1 month into the year, you should be able to remember it's 2026, not 2025, but I'm going to admit that I'm probably going to screw that up a few more times. But anyway, good to have all of you here on the program. I've got a question for you. Did anybody watch the Grammys last night? Anybody watch the Grammys? Oh, I tried. I, honest to God, tried. As a man who presents the news and gives commentary and conversation, I tried to watch a little bit of it. And, you know, I used to be, that's why how we built the Lakey Entertainment Towers, was by being involved in the music industry. And so I appreciate the music industry. I understand the artistry of it. I love the presentation of it. I was watching just how many stages they set up, and I was just thinking the production element as I'm watching it. I was just watching it from a lens of somebody that was in a part of the business, a very small part, but I watched it and then I couldn't. I watched it until I couldn't. And about the time they lost me, first of all, Trevor Lawrence is a buffoon, and how this guy, this jackwagon, has hosted this thing for 6 years or 5 or 6 years is unbelievable to me. I guess this is the last year on CBS, he said, and therefore he's going to not host anymore, and thank God. And CBS, you probably would have done much better had you not hired that jackass to host it. He's an absolute idiot. He's not funny. And how he got the gig, he must have naked photos of somebody with a sheep. I'm telling you, it ain't very good. I watched a little bit. I did my best. I did my best to watch the Grammys, and I lost it with old Bad Bunny. Everybody know Bad Bunny? He's this dude that is he's going to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show this upcoming Sunday. And that would be one good reason not to watch the Super Bowl halftime show this upcoming Sunday. And so I tried to watch it, and this buffoon, Trevor Lawrence, sat down and said, Bad Bunny, it's kind of a staged comment. I may move to Puerto Rico if things in America keep getting bad. And Bad Bunny says, oh, Puerto Rico is America also. He goes, oh, God, I didn't know that. So just stupidity on display. And then old Bad Bunny got up there and he won an award. Woohoo! Or he won an award, and all the girls, ladies dressed like whores clap for him. They all dress. There's got to be dads watching their young daughters. They're very talented daughters going, why do you have to dress like a hoe when you sing your songs? Why is that? Maybe I'm just getting old out there. So I watched it, and then Bad Bunny, he began, before I thank my God, I would like to say, hell with ice or something. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this crap. I'm absolutely done with this crap. I did go back, kind of a whiplash moment, and I watched another segment of it, and they said Bieber, and I've always been a big Bieber fan. I know, don't judge me. I've always been a big Bieber fan, so Bieber's going to perform. And this made me laugh. This made me giggle. Bieber walks out there. They zoom in, and he's on stage. He's wandering around like he's a homeless man in a bar. I don't know where I'm at here. He's walking around. He's wandering around stage with a guitar strapped over his bare chest because he has no shirt on. And then you actually realize he also has no pants on. Yeah, Bieber was out there. Justin was out there in silk underwear, just silk boxers. And that's how he performed. And he was doing a mix down of his own music and programming it. And he sang and walked off the stage. And then he came back on the stage. It was, I don't think he made eye contact with the audience or the cameras one time. I don't know. It was the most bizarre thing. And he had socks on too. It's like he got out of bed in winter and had to put some socks on because his feet were cold. And there he is in his underpants right there. So it was rather interesting to watch the whole thing. If you watched it last night, let me know your thoughts on the Grammys because I thought it was kind of bizarre. But you know what, Nick, I guess they clapped that Nicki Minaj was not at the Grammys. That was kind of a rude. They're not a very welcoming crowd. They're not a very inclusive crowd there among those hipsters that were hanging out there. Nicki Minaj has fired back at them. Let me read this to you. She's fired back at the Grammys host, Trevor Noah, who again is a buffoon, and how he hosted this thing for all those years, I don't know. The fireworks began when host Trevor Noah took a swipe at the iconic rapper Nicki Minaj in his opening monologue, saying Minaj was absent because she was still at the White House with Donald Trump discussing very important issues. Nicki Minaj is not here. She is not here, Noah said. Behind him, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend can be seen approving of her absence and throwing a thumbs up. She's still at the White House with Donald Trump discussing very important issues. He then impersonated Donald Trump, saying, actually, Nikki, I have the biggest ass. I have it. Everybody's saying it's Nikki, but I know they say it's you, but it's me. Look at me. Look at it, baby. Look at it. And Minaj, who has been extremely outspoken in her support of Trump, even calling herself his number one fan, took to Twitter last night and said, Trevor refuses to come out of the closet when everyone in the industry knows his boyfriend. Allegedly, she said. She takes a swipe, and it goes back and forth. It was just petulant. It was dumb at the Grammys. I watched it until I couldn't, and I only watched it because I knew I wanted to talk a little bit about it this morning, and I also watched it because, again, growing up in the music industry as my early business ventures were, and that's why we're the Lakey Entertainment Towers today, because of my involvement in the industry. I just can't do it. They're idiots. They're fools. They're stupid. It's a intellectual masturbation of these people clapping for themselves and applauding themselves, and a lot of it just lacks artistry anyway. And I like the artistry of it, but some of it's just quite pathetic. So anyway, if you watched the Grammys last night, let me know. Give me your thoughts here. I guess they all had anti-ice pins, and Billie Eilish, which I love. I love the Billie Eilish music. I really do. I'm a big fan of it, but I like Bieber's music, but Billie Eilish's music. Somebody's talking about Bieber in the chat room. I like Eilish's music, but I tell you, she came out. She goes, "No one is illegal on stolen land," and I guess she's referring to this being stolen land that we moved here. I don't know. So pretty much all land is stolen, I think, from someone. Someone conquered it from someone, for the most part, all over Europe. So it was a dumb statement by Billie Eilish. And again, it just ticks me off because I like her music. Now I'm going to listen to her music and go, yeah, she's stupid and she ain't real bright. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. Jimmy is my name. If you watched the the Grammys last night, the Grammy nominees last night, love to hear from you. It is Groundhog Day in America. And I tell you this right here, you need to know that it's Groundhog Day in America. I guess the Groundhog Puxatawny film has predicted 6 more weeks of winter, whatever that's worth. Yeah, he predicted 6 more weeks. Also, something happened over the weekend, if you want to talk music and entertainment, is that the Melania film, the Melania documentary, did quite well at the theaters, millions and millions of dollars, overperforming. All the producers, MGM, Amazon, all very happy about it. If you saw the Melania film last night, that is our question of the day over the weekend. If you saw it last evening, maybe you skipped the Grammys, went to the theater and saw Melania, maybe you watched it on Friday or Saturday. If you've seen Melania, give us your reviews in the chat room. Whether you're watching on one of the several Facebook feeds that we're on, the Twitter feed, the Rumble feed, the YouTube feed, wherever you're at, I would love to hear it. The numbers-wise and attendance-wise, the critics and the people said it's going to not be well received. Looked at the pre-sales of this. And so I'd like to ask you, did you see it? It exceeded expectations at the box office according to what we were told the expectations were. I thought it would perform pretty well, but I was right and the critics were wrong. But let us know if you saw the Melania film. Give us your favorite parts. Let us know your review. If you could be Siskel and Ebert, you are all deputized as movie reviewers on the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast, podcast, and broadcast. Please let us know what you thought of the Melania movie. That is our question of the day. All right, let me go to our first guest of the morning. His name is Jonathan Butcher. He's written a fantastic new book. At least the title catches my attention. I have not read it yet. It's called The Polarization Myth, America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex. He has also, my friends, written other books you might have heard of. We can talk about those as well. And he also, well, let's just get to the full bio here to make sure you all understand. He's the Will Skillman Fellow at the in Education at the Heritage Foundation. He's also authored a book called Splintered: Critical Race Theory and the Progressive War on Truth. But again, the latest book is called The Polarization Myth: America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex. Please welcome to the stage of the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast podcast broadcast is Mr. Jonathan Butcher. Jonathan, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Great to be with you.
I'm glad to have you here on the program here, sir. First of all, let's talk about the book. Just kind of give us an overview. We'll come back and talk about it, but I want to tie the talk about the book into some current events that we have out there. So give us the overview of the book.
Sure. Well, elites in the media and in Hollywood want Americans to think that they are totally divided, that we are polarized on every issue, and that there is no consensus that we can come to. And as the movie from, 2 years ago, 18 months ago said, we're headed to a civil war where the White House is going to be calling airstrikes on Americans. But that's just not true. I conducted a nationally representative survey of the general public and of parents, and I asked them the hot button questions, right? Do you want boys to have access to girls' private spaces? Do you want books that have explicit acts of sex on school library shelves? Do you think that individuals should be judged based on the color of their skin when they apply for a promotion at work or when they are applying for college? Do you want young people taught about character and virtue? And on all of these questions, Americans came back with some very common sense positions, right? And all of these ideas are policies on which we can build a sense of shared national identity. And it's a far cry from what the experts would have us believe.
Again, the voice of Jonathan Butcher, if you're listening later in the day on the podcast version, where thousands of earballs will hear this show, he's written a book called The Polarization Myth: America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex, also with the Heritage Foundation. We'll talk about that as well. Jonathan, let's dive into this thing because the experts would want us to believe that we're very divided. You watch even a show like last night of the Grammys, and you think, we live on different planets. It's a different universe. You watch the rioting, the protesting, the destruction in Minnesota, and the media can make it things like, we're the only ones who think those people are crazy, and we want ICE to be deporting. The media can portray it in a way that if we're just sitting at home with our clicker or remote control, we feel like we're all alone. You're saying that we're not all alone in our thoughts. We're not the only ones watching the Grammys going, what the heck are these people talking about? ICE or the protesters? A lot of us are like the rest of us, but the media doesn't want us to know we're like the rest of us.
Well, that's right. And listen, just because an election is close or just because the media is constantly showing clips from fighting that's happening in California or Minnesota or wherever, it doesn't mean that we're divided on every issue. On the things that parents talk about around the dinner table, on the things that your coworkers talk about when you go to the office each morning, when you're sitting across from someone in the pew, or when you're having a conversation in the neighborhood, right? There are a lot of these issues that have some very foundational moral concepts to them that Americans agree on. For example, in my survey and in others that I've seen, when you ask individuals, do you want young people taught that they should finish high school, get a job or enter college, and then get married before you have children? We want children taught this, right? And the numbers are high. It's more than half. There's a majority of people in the survey who want kids taught these basic things. And that lends itself over to the bigger question of civics and whether we want civics taught more in schools. It turns out the same thing. A majority of those in my survey and in others, in fact, on the right and the left, want civics taught more in schools. And what all of this points to is that there are ideas on which, or policies on which, we can build a shared sense of identity. We don't have to agree on every topic, right? That's why the founding fathers talked about factions and making sure that there was appropriate representation, right, of competing ideas. That's what our system was designed for. But just because we don't agree on every issue doesn't mean that we're polarized, right? It doesn't mean that the American founding ideals were false when they were written, or that the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution need to be scrapped, which is what the radical left wants, right? That's what they're calling for. They're calling for our system to be torn down and something, right? They never sort of get to what the next step may be. And when in reality, we have equality under the law. And that's what we need to protect for everyone, regardless of ethnicity, background, country of origin.
Is there a political, I guess, message that's not getting through? Is anybody out there paying attention to the unity, or are we just so divided that we can't see the unity because of the chaos around us? I mean, is anybody able, is there any national figure, President Trump, Chuck Schumer, somebody out there that's able to kind of rally around these bits of unity and these common values that we have? Because it seems like we're so divided, there's no commonality.
Well, the mainstream media, needs to sell advertising, so conflict is good at doing that. I would say we should point to state lawmakers that have passed proposals in recent years that disband DEI offices in public employment or on college campuses. Florida's done that. Texas has done that. In fact, we're getting close to about half of states in the U.S. Here, more than a dozen that have adopted policies that prohibit the use of taxpayer spending on DEI programs. These DEI programs, at their very core, right, they are pushing racial preferences. That's what they were designed to do, right? They're pushing racial prejudice. They want racial favoritism is essentially what they're after. And state lawmakers, to their credit, they have taken key steps showing leadership to disband these programs. But the same thing goes on the issue of gender, right? Some of these same states have prohibited the teaching of, quote, gender to young people. And what's fascinating is that there's even surveys from the New York Times that show that Americans don't want gender taught to young people, elementary school kids, even up to middle school kids. Even when it comes to high school, I think people are divided on the issue. So importantly, as you talk about young kids, we don't want them to be confused with this idea that somehow they could have been born in the wrong body. And policymakers are adopting policies along those lines, and that's consistent with public opinion.
A lot of parents woke up during the COVID era when people were locked down in their homes and the kids were learning on iPads, and they realized some bad things were happening in the classroom. Even now, there's a story up in the Northwest in which some preschool and a Montessori school were taken out by these radical group of teachers and taught to hold up signs in the playground about anti-ICE. There's a teacher in Chicago that's been put on leave for putting a social media comment actually in favor of ICE. It seems as if maybe COVID woke us up, the shutdown woke us up to what was happening in our education system. How important is it that we keep this on the front burner and pay attention to it? Because you've got people being criticized because they praise ICE. You've got children in the Northwest at a Montessori school being taught to protest ICE, and they don't probably even know what immigration is. How important is it that we keep focusing on education?
It's very important. And in fact, this is something that those on mainstream media outlets won't tell the American people, but Americans know that high schools and the school system, they're at the center of many communities. In fact, if you go back, maybe a decade, people remember being upset by the Common Core, right? And protesting or opposing the idea that the Common Core national standards were better for kids. If you go back a little further, there were appropriate voices speaking out against the radicalization of the humanities in the late 1990s. Go back a little further, and we have the reading wars. The whole point of this is that American communities know when a local school is not teaching the values that they share, that parents share, and that parents want taught to young people. And so this, frankly, is the way in which Americans can appropriately go to their school board or go to their child's teacher and say, I don't want my child taught this material. I don't want my child taught some sort of radical agenda. And I think when the media frames these things on positions that the left dislikes, they frame it as being polarization, or they frame it as something that's isolationist, when in fact it's not. This is a majority of parents coming out and saying, I don't want a boy in my child's locker room. And that's a very common sense and very popular position.
The name of the book is called The Polarization Myth, America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex, written by Jonathan Butcher. He's also the Will Skillman Fellow in Education at the Heritage Foundation, wrote a book called Splintered: Critical Race Theory, The Progressive War on Truth, and he is our guest today. If you're listening later in the day, again, it's Jonathan Butcher. The latest book is called The Polarization Myth. Jonathan, I ask you this question here. If the subtitle is America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex, we have consensus. How do we come together more? How do we realize that consensus? Because most of us would read that and go, really, there's consensus on these topics? I feel like it's not. How do we make that consensus more obvious? And how do we, have more of a kumbaya moment as a nation?
Well, I think we have to realize those that have come into agreement on these issues. So remember, when the White House was telling Harvard and Columbia to stop some of their radical activities, the University of Michigan, one of the largest countries in the largest colleges, excuse me, in the United States, that's had a DEI office for years and years, they voluntarily closed their DEI office last year. They knew that they couldn't defend it in court when they were challenged. We need to spread the word about this, right? That there are those even those we've considered on the left or in academia who are understanding, right, what is consistent or not with our Civil Rights Act. The same would go for state lawmakers who are disbanding these gender studies programs or doing away with the teaching of, quote, transgenderism to young children. In, again, places like Florida and Texas come to mind, but it's even school districts around the country are adopting provisions, adopting resolutions protecting women and women's private spaces. There are state attorneys general that have signed letters opposing what the Biden administration was trying to do on this. So we need to advocate for and remind Americans that there actually are quite a few policymakers that see not only what's important according to the law or morality, but also public opinion.
Let me ask you this. We're heading towards, 10 months away from a midterm, and the politicians, the political parties, ads will all come back on trying to divide us and attack, attack, attack. Is there a message that one of the political parties, maybe the Republican Party, should attack or should use in this to say, hey, we have more in common than we do, more unites us than divides us? Is there a message you would give political types advice for in running a campaign?
Sure, I would say that school choice has been a popular topic for many years. Now, there are some states, right, where lawmakers may disagree, but even in places like Illinois, at one point anyway, they had a private school scholarship program. More than half of all U.S. states have some form of private school choice option, and I think telling parents that they are in the driver's seat and that parents should be empowered to make choices about what's best for their children. Boy, that's a message that I would like to hear as a parent. And I think there are parents around the country who would want to hear the same thing from a lawmaker, right? When I'm going to be in office, I'm going to put parents in the driver's seat and make sure that they are the ones who are in control of their child's moral and religious upbringing.
Let me dive into the kind of the crux of the book. You didn't just make up this consensus on race, schools, and sex. Talk about the research and the polling and the study that went into it, so that folks know that it really is well researched. That there is a consensus on some of these major topics.
Sure. I commissioned a nationally representative survey of the general public, as well as a representative survey of parents. And I also took my findings and I tried to see, did they line up with Gallup? Did they line up on the education side with scholarly journals such as places like Education Next? When I had surveys on gender, for example, did it line up with what the New York Times has asked? Did it line up with what other survey companies have asked Americans? And it turns out the results do align. We have several surveys over the course of a period of years, and that points not just to a snapshot in time, that points to a shared set of ideas, right? Points to a shared national identity. Again, we can build on top of that identity a set of public policies that protect the rights for everyone, regardless of your socioeconomic or racial background.
The name of the book is called The Polarization Myth, America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex. Jonathan Butcher is my guest. Jonathan, you're also with the Heritage Foundation. Sir, talk about the Heritage Foundation and the work that you do regarding education.
Sure. So the Heritage Foundation is building an America where freedom, opportunity, prosperity, and civil society flourish. And our education team protects parent rights, protects those who already have school choice, and then advocates and provides research for those who do not yet have school choice so that lawmakers understand that every child should be able to choose how and where they learn.
The name of the book again, The Polarization Myth, America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex. One last question, Jonathan. As you went into this book, I'm sure you went in, you had the National Survey Commission. Everybody goes out and polling people. Were there any great surprises? What was the one thing that came back as you're going through the research, go, wow, that stuns me? Maybe the measure of which the consensus was there, or just any kind of fact that came back that really shocked the heck out of you?
Well, there are a couple of questions on which there was more neutrality or ambiguity than I would have found. For example, when it comes to teacher unions, most Americans in my survey put teachers unions as, in terms of a problem in K-12 education, somewhere in the middle. And what Americans don't, I think, understand enough is that these teacher unions are ready-made radical leftist activist groups. They are not protecting the working conditions of their members. They are funneling money from teacher paychecks into radical political causes. They are the ones in favor of, quote, transgenderism. They are the ones pushing DEI. And I think when we recognize that this is a major political interest group, not a union protecting working conditions, I think that will open parents' eyes to what's happening in K-12 schools.
Yeah. Jonathan Butcher, I appreciate you coming on the Polarization Myth, America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex. And you can find the book anywhere fine books are sold. And also, folks can find you at heritage.org, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. And on social media, at JM_Butcher.
JM_Butcher. Jonathan Butcher, I appreciate you hopping on the program. Again, if you're listening later in the day, it's Jonathan Butcher, the name of his book. You don't see it on the screen because you're listening with your earballs. It's the Polarization Myth, America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex. All right, ladies and gentlemen, real quick, I want to remind you about Sherry Cree, great friend of the program. Sherry's a great realtor in Colorado. If you're watching this program in Colorado, I would encourage you to call her if you've got a real estate question. Maybe you're thinking about selling, maybe you're thinking about buying. You need to reach out to Sherry and have a conversation. There's a lot of strategery that goes into buying and selling. And I push this because we're in a selling window right now. It is a seller's market. Jimmy, it's wintertime in Colorado. Why would I want to sell? Because if you can, people that make a decision to sell in the early spring window, which is now, oftentimes make more money than people that sell in the late spring window. Sherry gave an example a couple of weeks ago of someone that almost six-figure difference between two neighbors just on the basis of when they listed their homes. Listen, there's a strategy. You want to know when to list, when to buy, when to sell, and talk to Sherry. She can kind of figure out what you want to accomplish. She approaches every real estate transaction, every client of hers, as you need to know that your real estate can create generational wealth. She knows that it can not just be great for you and your spouse and your immediate family, but immediate generations living with you, but it can create generational wealth down the road. And that's what Sherry approaches at, wants to make the right decisions so that you have that generational wealth is in abundance for you. Homeswithsherry.com, the I-25 corridor. If you're in the Boulder, the Broomfield, the Longmont area, the Erie area, down to downtown Denver. If you're out in Saudi Aurora, she'll help you out there. Parker, Arvada, you know where I'm talking about. Up to Fort Collins, she can help you there. And by the way, if you're outside of an area that she feels that it's somebody else, she will do a free referral service. So don't hesitate to call her wherever you're at. Homeswithsherry.com, Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. And be sure, of course, to let her know that this lovely gentleman on the screen, that's me, is talking about her. Homeswithsherry.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you met him for the first time on this show, the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast podcast broadcast. I like to say that. You met him at the Lakey Unleashed Roadshow at the Casa Bar Cigars in Lafayette, and a lot of you commented and liked him. Some of you thought his humor was funny. Some of you didn't. No, just kidding. Ladies and gentlemen, R.P. Newman joins us back on the stage here at the show. Mr. Newman, welcome back in, sir.
Do you really mean that from the heart? And by the way, here's the most important question of the day. Am I getting a cigar out of this rig? I mean, what's happening here?
I got you one the last time, didn't I? I got you your cigar.
Yes. Okay. So you're saying you're interested in continuity. This is a trend, and your answer is yes. Very good.
Yeah. Producer Chad's on the hook for the cigar. No, I'll get you a cigar. I always get you a cigar. That's what I get you. How are you, sir? You doing well?
I'm fair to middle, and yourself?
I'm doing well. Did you watch the Grammys last night? That was exciting.
Oh, yeah, I was all over it. Yeah, I'm a huge Grammy fan. The only program that's better than the Grammys are the Oscars. I really like those as well. I skip all the sports. I don't talk to my wife during these. I'm just watching the show because it's so intriguing and uplifting. And now President Trump is threatening to sue the host for libel. Or would that be libel, or is that the other one? One's written and one is
defamation and libel.
Defamation, yeah, whatever those are. We should call Dan Caplis.
We should find out
because he's a lawyer guy. He knows all that stuff.
No, he only knows personal injury though. He'd say that's not my specialty.
I understand.
Yeah,
I
but you
understand.
could play a
Well, I've been
lawyer.
personally injured before, so you know.
If you watched the Grammys last night, might have been personally
Oh
injured.
yeah, that's
I did
psychologically maiming.
I did tell the crowd earlier that I did tune it in because I used to be in the music industry with promotion and concerts and artist management. And I turned it on, flipped off, and got ticked off. And I said, I'm going to look one more time. And Justin Bieber was up there. And I'm going to admit, I like Bieber's music, but he's up there in his silk boxer shorts, no shirt, just socks and silk boxers, and he's performing. And I said, I wonder if RP Newman's coming on the show dressed like Justin Bieber. And I'm glad you didn't.
I do not have silk boxers on. You can just take whatever you want from that. However, you know, because I'm such a good guy, I want everyone to know I'm wearing my Minnesota University of Minnesota sweatshirt today because I don't have any hard feelings against the scum-sucking pigs who are rioting in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
You know,
Any hard feelings about Elon Omar? Would you vote for if you lived up there, sir?
I think she's just wonderful. I've been in her neck of the woods before over there on the Horn of Africa. It's a great place. I've got 2 timeshares in Mogadishu. I know you're signed up to visit one next week. Don't forget the fee is $3 a day.
Mogadishu, that's a hot spot of glory. Isn't
Oh,
it? Beautiful.
that's the place there, man. That's better
Yeah.
than Costa Rica.
She hates this place so much. I don't know why she doesn't go back to Mogadishu. Her peoples are there, and it's all good. All right, RP Newman. Last time we talked about Iran and the protest in the streets. We're hearing that some naval vessels have arrived or are arriving in the area, and perhaps the United States is now going to engage ourselves in some type of activity in Iran. Give us the scoop. Give us the real story. What do we need to know, and what is happening there? And do you think we're on the brink of some military action?
Well, the most important thing I believe that we need to know, serious business here, is that President Trump is trying to avoid a war. And he has given the proverbial off-ramp to the terrorist regime that runs Iran twice now. And one of those ramps is still open. The first ramp he gave for Operation Midnight Hammer, which came to be because the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, he chose no. He chose war, and we've given it to him again. Hopefully, he will take that. But the president might be in a little bit of a pickle in regards to a few weeks ago. He told the people of Iran who were protesting for freedom and the overthrow of the regime that help was on the way. That's an implied promise. And now, if help doesn't come and the regime is left in place to continue their abuse of the Iranian people, that's going to produce some kickback onto the presidency, onto the White House. We don't know exactly what shape that will take or how severe that kickback will be, but it will produce kickback.
Is it surprising to you that it's taken so long for these naval presence to get into the area? That seems to be a hotbed of activity year round for generations. Why were we so far away from the region?
Well, it's just that the carrier was far away, and her strike group, the Abraham Lincoln, they were down in the South China Sea, and they had to leave the South China Sea, go up through the Strait of Malacca, across the Indian Ocean into the North Arabian Sea, and it takes a while for her to get there, and her warships that come along with her. Now, remember this though: what you don't hear so much about is the U.S. Fifth Fleet is stationed in Bahrain. The Fifth Fleet. And I mean, right there in the Persian Gulf, you can see the dirt of Iran in the form of dust from Bahrain, depending on the weather conditions, has this reddish tan haze. Because I've spent so much time in that area, and I know what it looks like going back to 1980 for crying out loud. When I was off the coast of Iran aboard the USS Okinawa with my Marine Recon team, when Delta Force launched from the USS Nimitz on Operation Eagle Claw, the failed rescue mission for the 50 some odd hostages that were held 444 days by the terrorists in Iran. And so you have all that firepower there. And remember, we also have the United States Air Force. There's plenty of aircraft available there. But what the Carrier Strike Group presents is a mobile target, and it has a lot of firepower. And it's not just strike aircraft aboard her. There are all types of aircraft, from reconnaissance and electronic warfare birds, refuelers, logistics aircraft. There's a lot there. And she's now in the AO, the area of operations, and she's probably cutting donuts out there in the North Arabian Sea, has happened in the 1980s. She's safer out there and her battle group than if that vessel were to actually sail through the Strait of Hormuz, that choke point there, into the Persian Gulf.
Is it a signal that you mentioned the Air Force presence there? You mentioned the Fifth Fleet. So obviously we've taken action without the USS Lincoln there, the Lincoln Fleet there. We took action in Midnight Hammer. So is it signaling something big that's going to happen, that this action is going to be different? We have to have the Lincoln in place in that area because we've done stuff before without it there. What does it tell us that now we have to have the Fifth Fleet and the Abraham Lincoln there?
What this is additional firepower. When you look at offensive operations or the threat of offensive operations, you want the correct combat mix. And by a combat mix, I'm referring to not just the personnel. You want vessels, you want weapons, you want platforms, aircraft. You want everything that if you have the time, you want everything there that you might possibly use. Don't rush into anything. There's an old saying in the military: never run to your death. And so think about, before you're going to hit somebody, what might the results of that hit be? And we want to be able to defend our organizations over there as much as possible. So yes, we have the Fifth Fleet based out of Bahrain, right across the Persian Gulf from Iran. And now you've got the Abraham Lincoln. You've got a lot of other assets there. We have assets in Saudi Arabia. However, just a few days ago, and I know you saw this, the Saudis said publicly that no, we will not allow U.S. strikes to be launched from in our airspace. That's political expediency. Remember, when you're speaking with Saudis, and I lived there for 5 years working in the defense industry, what the Saudis say sometimes isn't as important as what they do not say. They're very subtle, and there is subtext to the context. And you've got to understand, in this case, what they didn't say is, oh, by the way, you can't do anything from anywhere in Saudi Arabia. We're not going to help you at all if you go to war with Iran. Iran is 12er Shia. They're waiting for the 12th Imam to return. Okay, that's 12er Shiism. It is extremely radical, and the Ayatollah, the Khamenei, the supreme leader, he's the leader of the 12er Shia movement, which is now highly political, not just religious. He's been very successful in weaving that into their society over there. So you must look at that as well. What else can we strike with? Well, the Iranians already know we have plenty of B-2s. That's a very complex operation if they're flying out of the United States. Can they fly out of a place like Diego Garcia, the footprint of freedom, where we have a joint base with the British in the Indian Ocean? Yes, they can do that as well. The flight is much shorter, but our assets, our platforms are highly capable. This does not mean we can't have aircraft shot down. You can ask Captain Scott O'Grady that. You could ask Lieutenant Colonel Daryl Zelko that, who were both shot down over the Balkans, one in 95, one in 1999. And Lieutenant Colonel Zelko was shot down out of an F-117 stealth fighter by an SA-6.
Wow.
I mean, that's about a 1960-61 platform.
Yeah.
So you have to be ready for our rescue forces to be to get in there and get properly briefed in case we have a pilot or more than one member of an air crew go down, and they are trying to evade capture inside Iran.
You mentioned the USS Abraham Lincoln Fleet Group is there now. You mentioned the Fifth Fleet. You mentioned the Air Force. You mentioned all sorts of potential. Then you mentioned the implied promise that President Trump said help is on the way. In your estimation, if you were doing some prognostication, do you think help is about on the way for the Iranian people? And if so, what do you think that will look like?
There's the $64,000 question right there.
That's why you make the big money and get cigars, because you have the answers.
I'm telling you that's it, and I really appreciate it. Capitalism is a wonderful thing. Right now, the jury is out on that. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to war," because I don't know that. Do we have the capability to go to war? Absolutely. And would we be successful? Very likely. That doesn't mean you're not going to get your nose bloodied. You ever been in a fight? You're going to get scuffed up too, unless you cold cock a guy from behind with a solly or something like that. You're going to have marks on your body too. And this being the body military, collectively speaking, in this time. Hopefully we won't. But that promise is out there from the president. And I mean, is he willing to pull the trigger? Well, I don't know. Why don't you ask Nicolo Maduro or Nicolas Maduro? He's in the United States now, and he's going to be there hopefully for a long time. The president will pull the trigger if he is convinced that number one, he's going to be successful, and he also looks at casualties. What are the possibility of casualties, and how bad could they be? Every president has to look at those things. Look at why we dropped the two nuclear weapons on Japan. It's not that we were angry at all the women and children and civilians who were killed in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's just that we didn't want to invade mainland Japan, and the death count would have been far greater on both sides. And so there's a president who has to look at things like that. That's a tough job, and he's only paid $400,000 a year. It's not a job I would want. I want to make a decision like that.
Yeah.
What if you're wrong? What if you're wrong, Jimmy,
Yeah.
and you're sitting in the Oval Office?
Yeah. You mentioned in our last meeting of the Roadshow show live, you mentioned that there was a lot of activity happening on the ground in Iran with the protesters, even trying to get some of their clothing to find out what was used against them, the protesters, by the Iranian regime. Now that the
Right.
dust, I guess, has settled, what do we know that the Iranian regime did? Do we have updated numbers on death? How brutal were they? Because the numbers I'm hearing are pretty staggering, and it's pretty nasty stuff that they did. They didn't do the public hangings that they said they were going to do, but they still killed a bunch of people.
They did. And when you look at the estimates, go ahead and pick one. It's somewhere apparently between 3,600 and tens of thousands. We don't know. Now, are there people working in the US government and in the Israeli government that have a much better idea than we do? Of course there are. But for whatever reason, they don't want to really release that information. Now, does that mean the president won't release that information if we get into a mix-up again with Iran? He might cite that. But remember also, intelligence is a tricky thing. You love for it to be accurate. Have we been stung before by inaccurate intelligence? We have indeed.
Yeah, weapons of mass destruction. I remember that one. You were probably in the middle of that one. You were pretty active in that, and we're looking for those
Yep.
weapons of mass destruction. Where are they? Oh, they're not
Where
here.
are they? Well, they weren't there.
Yeah. Let me ask you, going outside of that region, the Persian Gulf region, you mentioned Maduro. I read this weekend that President Trump has said we're in control of the oil supply of Venezuela. Yeah, we'll let the Chinese come. They've been buying it real cheap from Maduro, but they can buy it at market prices from the U.S. via Venezuela. Has President Trump, in your estimation, I guess globally, strengthened our position, or is he getting on the brink of now poking the bear, the Chinese, the Russians? I guess, are we safer now than we were 1 year ago?
It depends on where you poke the bear, and which bear you are poking. Now, there's a benefit to doing operations like we saw in Venezuela. It tells other bad actors around the world that we're serious, and by we I mean the president of the United States and his administration. And it shows that we have capability. Does that give them some pause and make them adjust their plans, policies, and procedures? It can. Sometimes it can. So when we examine something like that, you have wishful thinking, but hope and wishes do not form a good policy. You look at the Chinese, and some people, you study China as I have for decades, and people say, well, the Chinese, they're centrist. They're not going to attack anybody. They're going to let people turn to them. Really? Tell that to Tibet. Just to tell that to them, because remember, the Chinese of today, since Mao took over, they're they're communist and they can be aggressive. They were aggressive in Southeast Asia, but now they've changed their tactics a bit and they're more politically astute. Look at how they're spreading through the Philippine Sea and down into the Pacific. They're making business deals, and they had a business deal going with Maduro in Venezuela. There are other places to get your oil. Going back to your point here, one of them is the Dark Fleet. There are somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 1600 commercial vessels
Wow.
in the dark fleet, or the shadow fleet, as it is sometimes called, where they turn off their AIS and they spoof their location and and do some dirty things. They do a lot of ship to ship transfers at sea. And of course, we have satellites that are looking directly down on them. In the middle of an ocean, you see two VLCCs, very large crude carriers, and they're side by side, sitting still in the middle of the Atlantic. Well, they're not there sharing recipes for oatmeal cookies. They're transferring they're transferring illicit oil. And so business is business among the Chinese. The Chinese as a nation, as a people, before anything, they are businessmen. They've been in business for 5,000 years or so. And this is how they operate. What can we do about situations like this? We don't have the operational nor the logistic capability to board and seize. That's called a VBSS, a Visa Board Search and Seizure Operation. Every dark fleet ship. We don't have the people. We don't have the ships.
Yeah. If those dark fleet, shadow fleets are not getting their oil from Venezuela, that they've lost a port there. Where are the other ports that they're hanging out at?
Well, there are some. There are a lot of ports that accept oil, of course, but Venezuela is a big mover in the Persian Gulf itself. There's a lot of oil being moved. Imagine that. And Iran has routinely captured commercial vessels. They send out the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they seize vessels there filled with what the Iranians are calling illicit oil or illegal oil. So it just depends on your viewpoint, doesn't it? We're
Yeah.
doing it, and so are the Iranians.
Yeah. RP Newman's my guest. He's got a new book coming up real soon. RP Newman, are you sitting in the spot where you write the magical books that you got like 19 books published out there? Is that the spot where the magic happens?
This is it. This is my fabulous office, and this is where all the brain work takes place, which doesn't take long at all.
I can see the glow on your head. It's like
Oh
it's
yeah,
inspiration from heaven. It happens right
yeah.
there. And I'm glad you shared it with us. When's the new book come out? Tell us about the new book.
It'll be sometime later this year. The new book uh, is something I've been working on since this past summer. It's called Iran's War of Annihilation. I already have a publisher lined up, and no, this isn't self-published. I use real publishers for all my books. We have to send a query letter, sample chapters, synopsis, that whole ball of wax, because they're funny that way. Publishers, they're businesses and they like to make money. And but this is about the war that Iran has been waging, oftentimes in what's called the gray zone, from 1979 to 2026. This fracas began in 1979 with the overthrow of uh, Pahlavi on the Sun Throne, sometimes called the Peacock Throne, but people get that mixed up with the Indian Peacock Throne. But he was removed, and Ruhollah Khomeini, no relation to Khamenei, who is the supreme leader now, came waltzing back from Paris,
Yeah.
and the trouble started from there. So this is going to cover everything that has happened, and it's about 85,000 words, 9 chapters, indexed, very interesting photos from interesting places, and I hope everyone will enjoy it. I'll let you know when it does come out.
We'll do it. One last question. If the U.S. takes action there, is that part of the consideration? Obviously, regime change has not worked in certain forms for the U.S. Is that part of the consideration that the Trump administration, the U.S. wants to know what's going to fill the vacuum if the Ayatollahs are gone?
It really is, because when you look at Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince who's living in America and elsewhere now, He wants to be the new Shah. Now, some of the protesters in Iran want him back, others do not. He wants very much to come back, and he's been talking a lot lately, saying he might return to Iran prior to any regime change, meaning the IRGC is still in control.
Wow.
That's a big threat.
Going to be interesting. RP Newman, if folks want to follow you, read your books, where do they go, sir?
Amazon.com.
Amazon.com. RP Newman, right there on the screen. Appreciate you, my friend, and I owe you a cigar. Maybe today. We'll see if you're around. Talk to you soon. RP Newman, my guest, and again, go to look all of his books. Some of his books are not about. They're about fishing. Some of his books are not about war and things, but you'll find a great eclectic group of books. RP Newman, my guest here on the show. All right, anybody go the question of the day? I forgot so many things we didn't get to. Producer Chad, we got lots of stories we didn't get to. We're going to push them till tomorrow. You know why we can't do that? I want to give you a programming note. I will not be here. There will be no show. Your screen will be black on Wednesday and Thursday. I'm taking 2 days off. I've been going back and forth to check on my mother, who has been ill health for the past 12 or so months. And I usually try to do the show from the road. And it ends up, because I do the show, I end up having to spend more time there because it eats up my whole morning. So I've told producer Chad I'm going to focus on that for just Wednesday and Thursday. It's shortening my trip, making it a little bit more focused, and I appreciate you understanding that. So Wednesday and Thursday of this week, which will be the 4th and the 5th, I will not be here behind the microphone. We'll be back for the Friday edition of the show, but there is no show Wednesday or Thursday of this week, just so you know. Please make your note on your calendar and plan accordingly. I've got this story I want to get to. I think this is fantastic, and I'll close it up. We'll go to the meme roulette section of the show after this one. There's a story that broke over the weekend. You heard earlier Jonathan Butcher talk about this, the gender ideology movement that's been out there, and I wonder if this is the first, chip in the armor. I wonder if this is the first fall, because a woman who underwent breast removal surgery at the age of 16. Her surgeon, her psychiatrist all said, "Oh, you're just a boy, and so we need to chop those breasts off of you. We're going to take those boobies away." And unfortunately, they did. And now, all of a sudden, this woman is now 22 and says, "My psychologist and plastic surgeon were sons of guns." Fox Varian, 22, sued her New York-based psychologist and the plastic surgeon and their respective employers because she regrets getting that surgery, and they said it was okay to get at the age of 16. Would not have been able to go to the store and get a tattoo, would not be able to buy a beer, would not be able to do so many things that 16-year-olds cannot do. But the psychologist and the plastic surgeon said, "Yeah, we'll cut those breasts off," and they did. Well, Fox Varian's attorney contended that the healthcare professionals misdiagnosed and improperly treated her at the age of 16 for gender dysphoria. The defense claims that Varian did not express regret about surgery until years later. They also argue that it was Varian's decision to use him/her pronouns. Well, again, the thing is, you're 16. Well, the mother of the young lady has said she was opposed to the surgery, but she consented to it because she feared the daughter might commit suicide otherwise. And the psychologist had concerns and said, "Yeah, Mom, you got to let her do it. She's going to off herself." Well, now this young lady has been awarded about $2 million in damages of malpractice from the surgeon and from the psychologist. They're going to have to pay some big bucks here. And so I want to talk more about this story. We'll try to dive into it, because I wonder if this is a shot across the bow for anybody that thinks you can take a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 9-year-old, and start giving them puberty blockers, or start cutting things off of them, or sticking all of that. And then they grow up and they get their full brain develops, and they go, "What was I thinking of what happened to this?" And it's a really interesting story. They had requested about $8 million. The jury concluded that the failures were a departure from the standard of care, and they gave Fox Varian $1.6 million for past and future pain and suffering and $400,000 for future medical expenses. And so any corrections that Fox Varian wants to have done, her surgeon and psychologist are going to have to front that bill. About $400,000 has been set aside, and $1.6 million for past and future pain and suffering. And I'm hoping that every doctor and surgeon and psychologist out there that's encouraging someone below the 18, young children or teenagers to transition their body, I'm hoping they're paying very close attention, because this is now a precedent that a jury has said, no, you can't do that. The case was not about whether the surgery was appropriate for a minor, concerned about healthcare professionals follow the proper steps in prioritizing the treatment and deliver an accurate diagnosis. So the jury wasn't said, is it appropriate to transition a minor? The jury was told to focus on, did they actually deliver an accurate diagnosis? Did they prioritize the treatment correctly? And so they weren't. So it's really fascinating. You read the details of the case, and I think it's going to be fascinating to watch more of these lawsuits happen as you have more and more people that regret their transition that happened when they were younger. Again, you get a little older, you want to cut things off, stick things on. I don't care. That's your business. I think it's weird. I think you probably need mental help, but you make your decision. But when you start dealing with 15, 16-year-olds or puberty blockers for kids that have not even hit puberty, that's sick, that's twisted, and now there's precedent for lawsuits later on in life for the pain, the suffering, and the damage that has been caused. So that's a really interesting story to watch, and you should pay attention to it. I also tomorrow dive into a couple of more stories that there's always chaos going on out there, and usually the chaos that people are trying to gin up or spin up is trying to distract you from what you should be paying attention to. And we'll talk about some of the chaos that is out there as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to tell you, we're out of time for the day. Don't forget, Wednesday and Thursday, we will not be doing this show. All right, today's Groundhog Day. And I've got to tell you something about Groundhog Day. You ready? Groundhog Day, I must tell you. I wrote an email last night. It's going to go out today to our Rivers Promise list. Some days I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day every day. Every day I wake up to the stories of hungry kids. Every day I wake up to the story of needs at our school. Every day I think about how do we raise more money. And so anyway, we're going to send an email out tying Groundhog Day. It's kind of a fun email that I wrote last night, but it's also going to tie that into fundraising. Listen, I get tired of asking for money for our kids for a school, but we got to feed kids. I got hungry bellies every morning. Every day they show up again. They're back in school and they need 2 meals. And that's what we do at Rivers Promise and Legacy Christian Academy. Education is our top priority. Education is the ladder that a kid can use to climb from the pit of poverty. That's what we're doing in the beautiful country of Rwanda. Other great organizations do it in other countries. It's very important. Education is important here. You don't want indoctrination. We want education. But it's also hard to educate a kid and give them the tools to climb from the pit of extreme poverty when they haven't eaten in a few days. It's also hard to educate a kid when they haven't eaten in a couple of weeks, or maybe they found a potato or something in a field and they're eating on that. That's their meal. And so every day I got kids that show up at our school. I've got kids that are hungry. We got to feed them. And it is like Groundhog Day all over again. And we're not going to end Groundhog Day today, but every dollar that you give helps us stop the cycle of every day worrying about, are we going to be able to feed these kids properly? Would you help us do that? I put out a list of some of the numbers of the dollar amounts, but what, $15 buys an entire classroom their fruits for the day. $15 buys an entire classroom their vegetables for the day. If you want to break it down a different way, $30 feeds a kid 2 meals a day for a course of an entire month. If you can help us out to kick off the month of February, we were a little short on January, and I'd like you to start off February a little bit stronger, but it's Groundhog Day. And again, every day I wake up and I got kids showing up and I'm, we got the same problem again. And we're trying to solve that problem. And if you could help us, we'd appreciate it. Any dollar amount, donation amount is appreciated. We appreciate you helping us out. Check out the work of Rivers Promise. If you're one of the new folks that listen to the show, hear the show, just go to the website, riverspromise.org, nose around. You'll see why yours truly started the organization. and the charity work there. You will also see a documentary of my son, who I started it on his behalf in his honor. I started it to recognize just our relationship. You'll see a documentary that producer Chad put together a couple of years ago as my son's senior year of high school. Took him and a group of people over there to do the ribbon cutting at our first phase of Rivers Promise Legacy Christian Academy. Go check it out. If you can make a donation today, subscribe. Also, you still got time. Go to riverspromise.org, scroll down, subscribe to the emails, and you get a couple of emails a month, 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the most, and you get those emails every month, and it's just usually a note that I have written, and you can go check it out. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. Sign up for the newsletter, and you will read today one that will come out again on the one today that will come out on the Groundhog Day, and how I feel like I live in Groundhog Day every day with this charity. And it's a good thing, but it's also stressful. All right. What's the verdict on the Melania movie? People are asking. That was our question today. We'll come back and talk more about that tomorrow. Some of you run out to take the day off, go see Melania, and let us know what you think. We're going to continue to talk about this. I was talking to producer Chad before the show. It'd be nice to just maybe wait until it comes out on the Amazon or the stream services, which I probably will. But it's also good to go pad the numbers at the box office and freak out the American left. So if you can get to the theater, go see it. Let us know what you think. We'll talk about it the next couple of days. Ladies and gentlemen, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm not here. Riverspromise.org is where you donate. And by the way, don't forget our great friend Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. If you'd like to be a part of the show in any way, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. All right, here we go. It's time for the stolen meme section of the show. We round the globe and we steal memes from wherever to illustrate absurdity and to just make our hearts happy. Here we go, the stolen meme section of the show. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Babylon Bee. Experts warn arresting journalists could be slippery slope to arresting politicians and other people who deserve it. Hey, you better be careful. If you start arresting journalists, you might have to start arresting other people who deserve to get arrested. Maybe that would be novel, wouldn't it? Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. What happens when Florida gets cold? Shrinkage. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for it, but you are seeing shrinkage on the screen. And God bless Seinfeld. That was a great episode, the shrinkage one. It's cold out there. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. I just want to let you know that one day I'll stop annoying you. Today's not the day. Tomorrow's not looking good either. But one day I will stop annoying you. Today ain't your day. Truth. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Being a manager is cool and all, and plus all you make a decent money, but in reality you're just babysitting a bunch of adult toddlers that cry and complain about every dang thing. Chill and find your pacifier. I like that. I like this wardrobe. That's kind of good. At least she's not like Justin Bieber, just in his underpants last night. That was interesting. All right, here we go. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. You want to watch the baseball game with me? I say. My teen daughter says, no, I don't like baseball. And I say, I didn't like Little Mermaid, but I watched it 1,387 times. Now go get your hat and jersey on, and you're going to watch the damn baseball game. I didn't do that, my son. Hey, son, you want to go here with me? You want to watch this movie? No. Listen, I didn't want to watch every freaking Spider-Man movie that ever existed 45 different times. Don't want to do that. But I watched it, so you're going to watch Melania with me. I did make him go see the Clarence Thomas movie, and he enjoyed it. I did make him go see the wrestling movie that had the Von Erich family. Remember that? I made him go watch that one as well. Listen, I did that. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Hashtag who remembers. Yes, I read that wrong, and that's why we're friends. Some of you, I knew what I didn't know what was coming, but I looked. I said, I'm not going to say whore remembers. Whore members. I was going to say who remembers. I got it right. Yeah, some of you, if you read that on the screen and you said whore members, that's why you like producer Chad and Delilah. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. There it is. China always does it. We're having fun. We're spinning the memes out. We're laughing. We're enjoying our times. We're making fun of Delilah. And all of a sudden, China says, stop the intellectual property theft. You can't do any more of it. And so we won't do any more of it. We're just not going to do any more of it today. We'll do it pick up tomorrow. All right, don't forget, tomorrow's the final show for 2 days. We're going to do 2 days on, 2 days off. And then Friday, we will reconvene here with love and affection and a great time for everybody. I like it on the YouTube. The Walrus Poacher says, China. China. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to run. God bless you, my friends. I appreciate you. Don't forget, go to the website. And if you would donate to Rivers Promise, at least subscribe to our newsletter. It's really about 2, 3, maximum probably 3. I don't think we've ever said 4 out in a month, but it's just brief updates we give you on the kids in Africa, our work there. And oftentimes we're often just telling you kind of a financial need that we have. And every day I feel like it's kind of a Groundhog Day. And if you can help us break the cycle and get to the other side of the poverty problem, we would really, really appreciate it. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you tuning into the program. New listeners every day. If you want to contact us in any way, info@jimmylakey.com. That's me, Jimmy Lakey. Info@jimmylakey.com. I'm going to say it again because I like saying it. Info@jimmylakey.com. Don't miss tomorrow. Laura Carno's on the program. Ain't that exciting? Yes, it is. To Laura Carno Tuesday. Until we meet again, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you. May God bless America. Now go to Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podbean, everywhere podcasts are found. And in just a few moments, this show that you've watched and all of its glorious beauty that you've observed, now you can go back and just listen to the audio portion as we go to the podcast realm now. The broadcast, the streamcast, it stops now. Podcast begins now. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.